Hello everyone, how are you doing? I am Tesaks, and as I said in the previous devlog, this video is pre-recorded, so not really anything new on Gems Defenders, link in description. But let's talk about 5 awesome skills I discovered thanks to starting my own company, developing games and producing videos on YouTube. The cool thing is that these skills are useful in everyday life as well, and I think everyone should learn them. So let's start with planning, which I know is super boring, but let's hear me out. Growing up, attending school and university, and even later on going to my job, I was pretty much chaotic worker. What I mean by that is I never planned anything at all. And thanks to that, my final year-long project for high school was put together during the last week. I started preparing for graduation during the last 2 days before I was scheduled to graduate. And when I moved across the whole country to study on university, I haven't prepared anything in advance. And when I started working and eventually started developing puzzle pieces and later on I started my own company, it was pretty much the same. Until I realized how much time and headache I can solve myself with a little bit of planning. Today I'm still not going crazy on planning, but I got myself a whiteboard, OneNote, synchronized on my PC and phone, as well as a Google Calendar. Planning something can be as easy as just writing down individual activities that needs to be done that day, or in case of game development, set of features that needs to be implemented. In both cases it makes the process way easier, cleaner, and usually you figure out what else is needed to do or be prepared in advance. Anyway, number 2. Organization and consistency. And this comes hand in hand with number 1. In short, it means organizing everything in your life so it's easy to access without much of a struggle. As with planning, I used to be very inconsistent and very disorganized person. My work desk was, and honestly still is, a huge mess. But it boils down to think that I'm nowhere near being minimalist and I like keeping stuff on hand. But as much as being disorganized in your own space of your own home is relatively fine, it's definitely not fine if you are trying to achieve some goals in life. And because of that, I decided to change my way, at least for my professional life. Having stuff organized, backed up and labeled helps massively when dealing with older versions of the games I am working on, as well as makes projects nice to work with. And that helps with the second part of this point, consistency. No matter what anyone told you, consistency is the way to go if anything should be finished, ever. I'll give you an example. On my private YouTube channel I used to have this character, which really is the very early version of Mr. Fang, and that's the wolf in my logo, by the way. It was poorly drawn with bad colors and was disproportional. Why? Because I spent like 12 hours on it in one sitting and never ever returned to it. Nowadays my private YouTube channel is still using this character, which is also Mr. Fang, but this time around drawn in different art style, with way better colors, right proportions and mainly right dimensions. What changed? Well, as I said, I drawn the first one in one sitting and I drawn the second one in 3 separate sittings. The original, let's call it concept, took 12 hours. And to this day I remember how I spent whole night drawing and fighting with the vectors without being satisfied. Well, this one took like 3 2-hour sessions. Yes, I am way better at pixel art than I ever was with vectors, but separating it into 3 different sessions helped me to see my own mistakes in proportions, colors and other stuff. Also, I didn't got tired as much as working 12 hours non-stop, meaning I did not start neglecting small details. And I didn't burn myself out of the project, which is essentially what I managed to do with the original concept. And this really applies to everything in day-to-day life, as well as realizing this was probably the biggest improvement in my life. Anyway, let's talk about the third skill, and that's communication. So I'm not a native English speaker, but contrary to popular belief, I know English very well. What was the main issue when I first started making videos on YouTube, and not only that, but when I really started communicating with other people, trying to put together a team of developers to develop games with, and stuff like that. I struggled with my ability to put my visions and thoughts into words and then use the right words to communicate my ideas to other people. And I guess you can still see this in my videos today. And if you ever called with me, like on Discord and stuff, playing games and other stuff, you probably know that I like to go on long tangents describing simple things and over-describing stuff that don't need to be described. Reason for that is exactly this. So at least when it comes to professional communication with other developers and or business partners, I had to learn how to put my ideas and visions into the right words and then describe it as simply as possible in the smallest amount of words possible. And honestly, in some cases, this sometimes means writing 3 lines of text for more than an hour. But these skills translate very well to script writing for videos like this one, as well as to everyday life. When you need to describe something to someone else, as well as, I don't know, writing official letters and emails, and or communicating with authorities or other day-to-day companies like banks or insurance companies, for example. Anyway, let's go to number 4, which is ability to analyze and critical thinking. I don't know about your country, but these are the 2 highly valuable skills that are pretty similar and goes hand in hand, one with another, and are not taught in schools, at least where I live. I learned both of these while I learned programming. And quick disclaimer, yes, I learned how to program at school. No, I couldn't write to working lines of code once I graduated. And I graduated from programming. In fact, I learned programming way later on in my life when I decided I wanna be game developer, and I basically taught it myself during the evenings while I was employed. And that's when I learned both of these skills. One helping me analyze my own mistakes and the code errors and learning something new from it. And the second helping me understand what it is that's useful and what isn't useful from the, let's say, tutorial that I am following. And as an example how these are well used in everyday life, these are honestly really useful in everything from just talking to other people to driving a car. These 2 skills will help you to know what to prioritize, as well as to understand if you really need something or if it's just a sudden craving for dopamine introduced by some random person trying to sell you something. Or maybe, in the case of a driving car, just your ego trying to convince you that the car that overtook you is trying to race you. Well, anyway, I wanna keep this video reasonably long, so let's jump to number 5, and that's the ability to learn and to Google. And yes, I know, it sounds super cheesy coming from a guy who is programming games. But really, just the ability to Google stuff, to know how to formulate your thoughts and questions into the right words, and what settings of Google can be used to filter through all the possible answers, as well to know how to verify and check informations, improve my everyday life massively. And that ties the learning, mainly because learning is made of Googling these days. But again, let's talk about my school years. I was the kid who never had to learn anything. Everything just magically went into my head, and in the case if it didn't went into my head, then I just couldn't wrap my mind around it and it just flew past me. And really that was just me not knowing how to learn. Honestly, I have no idea how to explain how to learn, because I think it's pretty much individual. But I think trying to understand the topic and then really looking into how the thing works makes it way easier to realize you can learn anything. There are really no boundaries when it comes to learning. But hey, these are my 5 skills I learned during the last 2 years being full-time game developer. There is a bunch more skills I would like to mention, but I want to keep it short, so I picked these, which I see the most important ones. So, you know, what do you think? Let me know in the comments, what do you think? Do you have some other skills that you consider pretty much mandatory for everyday life? Or some that are just improvements of your day-to-day life so much you can't imagine living without them anymore? Now let me know in the comments. Anyway, make sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel and check description for all the fun links to all my games and social media. So go and check that, and I will catch you next time. See ya!